The G3 is LG's premium OLED TV offering for 2023, and it represents a sort of paradigm shift in OLED technology, at least another one. It has their micro lens array or MLA technology, which seeks to capture the light output that was previously wasted to increase the panel's light output and present a brighter picture to you, the viewer. Does it actually succeed? Is it even noticeable? And how does it actually perform? Well, this is the review. Stick around. Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and lover of all things tech, and I'm changing the format for TV reviews just a little bit. First we'll talk specs, of course, then quantitative and qualitative points. So that means we'll measure things like brightness, picture accuracy, and input lag, then talk about things like tone mapping performance, gradient and motion handling, overall picture quality, among other things. So let's dive right into the specs. The G3 comes in 4 sizes, a 55, 65, 77 like I have here, and finally an 83-inch screen size. All of them have the MLA technology except for the 83-inch screen size. It has a 120Hz 4K panel, which is typical for 4K TV these days, and of course is an OLED TV which has control of each of the over 8 million pixels on screen. So each pixel can be turned on and off as needed, which results in the infinite contrast ratios that TVs like OLEDs have. New for 2023 is LG Display's MLA technology, which implemented micro lenses to reflect the light that was normally lost back to viewers. That combines with the OLED Evo technology and the built-in heat sink to dissipate heat from the panel so it can maintain its peak brightness for longer periods. You can actually see the holes for the airflow behind the bezel of the TV. It has 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports, with port 2 being the EARC or Enhanced Audio Return port, so that you can connect compatible soundbar or receiver to transmit lossless audio from any connected devices to the TV or from the TV's built-in apps. Speaking of apps, the TV runs WebOS, which is typical of LG TVs. The OS has come a long way with a built-in hub view for your apps and connected devices. Navigating the interface is responsive, which makes for a really snappy experience. One quality of life feature that I really like is that the OS recognizes 4K HDR devices and enables the wide color gamut setting on the respective HDMI input automatically. Take some notes, Sony. Brightness is where the G3 really stands out from the OLEDs that have come before it. I measured the peak brightness and color accuracy of the panel using a pattern generator and Kalman calibration software. Using a 1% window, the TV had a peak brightness output of 1430 nits, which is bonkers for an OLED TV. That puts it in the realm of LED backlit LCD TVs. Not the higher end ones, mind you, like the QD-90C that I also reviewed, which came in at 2400 nits. But still, that's almost 50% brighter than the G2 from last year. That's all thanks to the MLA technology. The initial readings actually started in the 1300 nit range and got up to the 1400s. Then it fell again after running the tests for a while. The built-in heat sink and vent holes help to maintain the peak brightness, but they're not infallible after all. The full field peak brightness came in at 360 nits. In cinema mode, which is the most accurate normal picture mode that's outside the filmmaker mode, the TV has an average delta E of 2.5, which means the inaccuracies in the picture are perceptible with casual observation, which is slightly better than what I measured on Sony's A80L OLED TV, which had an average delta E of 2.7. Both of these TVs are WRGB OLED panels, which has a wide subpixel to help boost the overall brightness output. So it will be very interesting to see where the A95L measures, since it's based on Samsung's QD-OLED technology. Not everyone thinks of screen reflectivity when they think of brightness, but it's one of those important factors when it comes on to bright room performance, because the more reflections a screen has, the more light it will need to output to drown out those reflections. So sure, this TV has pretty high peak brightness, especially for an OLED, but how much reflection from the room making it back to the viewer is also important, especially for those people with lots of windows, and the G3 has some room for improvement here. I used my studio light to simulate an external light source, and although this version is brighter than the one I used in previous tests, you can see a clear definition of the light on the screen, even in the brighter scenes. The TV does get bright enough to drown it out in certain bright scenes though, which again is uncharted territory for an OLED. The coating of the screen isn't just a glossy mirror, thankfully. You can see how much of an effect the screen coating has while I peel the plastic off during the unboxing, but at that level there's still a fair amount of reflections from the room making it back to the viewer. That could be a problem in a brighter room depending on the content you're watching. This is where Samsung leads the pack, and I think LG can learn a bit from them. Again, it's not bad, but it's not great either. This is an OLED TV, so it has instantaneous pixel response, which measures how fast a pixel can be activated. But we want to measure how long it takes for the TV to process the incoming signal, the input lag, which is extremely important for gamers like myself. At 120 Hz, the input lag measured at 4.7 milliseconds, which is incredibly quick. At 60 Hz, it goes up to 9.2 milliseconds, which again is really fast. That's as fast as I've seen on any TV personally, which should make for some great lag-free gaming.
To my win. I am outstanding.
And unlike Sony's A80L, which I also tested, enabling VRR did not result in an increase in the input lag. Okay, so let's move on to more of the qualitative aspects, how the TV actually performs, and we'll start off with the tone mapping performance. Now, the tests were done in the cinema mode, and we'll be testing tone mapping, near black detail, screen uniformity, posterization and gradient handling, as well as motion. As we can see in the first test pattern, the brightness of each of the columns is distinct with great definition in the brightest and darkest sections. So that's the highlights and shadow detail, which past LG OLEDs have struggled with. That means the TV should be able to recreate those dark scenes with adequate shadow detail and those bright scenes with specular highlights with those highlight details intact. Moving on to the tunnel test, we see more of the same, where there's ample definition as the pattern progresses to the darker sections. In the near black detail test, we can see all the details of the test pattern, including all of the low brightness diagonal patterns in the background behind the gray rectangle. Not all TVs I've tested are able to display this pattern with this level of detail correctly. This is a noticeable improvement, even from the G2, which displays some of the details but didn't do as well as we see here with the G3. Now let's move on to the screen uniformity, and a disclaimer should be that this is an incredibly panel specific test. So not because the panel I have is clear or exhibits any issue means that yours will do the same. And the larger the size of the screen, then the higher the likelihood of panel uniformity issues. That said, this screen is 77 inches and I had some issues. First, when I unboxed and set the TV up, I did notice that the left side of the screen didn't look quite right. It had an area of low contrast that made me think it got damaged somehow. Surprisingly though, the issue disappeared after a day or two and never cropped up again. But in case it lingered, that's where customer service comes in handy, and the folks over at Value Electronics, where I got this TV, were ready to resolve it. They were actually in the process of resolving it when I noticed the issue had disappeared and I canceled it. So let me know in the comments what you would have done in my shoes and if you've had to send back a TV for any issues. Okay, back to the tests. Using a full field gray slide, we can see where there is a bit of dirty screen effect when using a darker 15% gray slide. like we have here, the issue is even more pronounced. Again, this is panel specific, so your panel may vary. Let me know in the comments again if you have any screen uniformity issues on your TV. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video while you're down there. We use the quantization test to see how the TV handles gradients and posterization or other artifacts. Using the low quality 8-bit pattern, there was a noticeable posterization in all three patterns, especially pronounced in the chroma blue pattern on the left. The middle one shows that the TV doesn't do the best job in smoothing out lower quality gradients in dark scenes like shadows, so banding in the shadows will likely be present on lower quality sources like streaming, for example. Even when using the higher quality 10-bit sources, the gradient just aren't as smooth as I'd like, especially in the chroma red on the right. LG definitely has some room for improvement with their gradient handling here. Sony TVs have normally performed better here. Even the lower tier 880L OLED did a better job with smoothing gradients than we see with the G3 here. When it comes to motion, the TV did pretty well. The typical OLED motion panning stutter can be fixed with just a small tweak of the anti-judder setting. That's a double-edged sword though, because not only does it introduce the soap opera effect, but it also led to some motion artifacts on some fast-moving objects. This is not anything new by any means, and that's actually happened with LG TVs of the past as well, even as recently as the G2 that I tested last year, but it has gotten better with the artifacting isn't as much. This is great for fast-moving sports or even football. All of these factors combine to paint a picture of the improvements the G3 has under the hood. It looks exactly like last year's model, but there's so much more to it. The brightness increase of 50% alone is a huge upgrade over the G2, but it also packs in picture processing improvements to sweeten the deal, and low stimulus and near black detail handling, as well as improved tone mapping performance for the added pop of specular highlights in HDR videos like this one. I think it's safe to say that it's a significant upgrade over last year's model. I think this is the paradigm shifting for WRGB OLEDs and a significant upgrade for the LG OLED lineup. Going forward, I can see the update of subsequent OLEDs being more iterative, at least for the next few years. So who is this TV for? Well, I've typically recommended OLEDs for people with light control rooms, and for those with rooms on the brightest side, I recommend an LED backlit LCD TV. But I actually don't think that's necessary here. This TV performs really well in bright rooms and even better in dark rooms. So for anyone wanting a great picture with incredible contrast for that HDR effect that pops, then the G3 should be on your list. If you're a gamer as well, then it's one of the best choices out there and should make your decision even easier. That said, the G3 doesn't exist in isolation, and there's also great options for those wanting a large bright OLED TV from both Samsung and Sony. We're going to be comparing them all to see which one really is the best and why. I actually have the Samsung S90C just sitting in a box waiting to be unboxed and tested. So make sure to subscribe and enable those notifications to know when those videos drop. Oh, and shout out to my nephew Chase for the custom artwork behind me. And those of you who want to learn more about the G3 or get one for yourself, then I've left links in the description. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos like this one. Until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood filler man saying be safe and peace.